Hey everyone, thanks for joining My Autism Tribe. Today's episode features Anthony Ianni, the first Division I athlete with autism and one of the most sought-after anti-bullying motivational speakers, and for good reason. His story is an absolutely powerful one. And as always, if you're enjoying our podcast, please rate and review us wherever you listen to podcasts and share with a friend. That's how we make our voice stronger. Thanks for listening. Welcome to My Autism Tribe, a community of advocates that are linked by autism but bound by strength. This is a time to find our sounding board and shoulders that help us carry life's load without the fear of criticism. We give and receive. We nurture and empower. I'm your host, Susan Scott. Bullying is a very real and serious problem that affects all ages, ethnic backgrounds, absolutely anyone. However, individuals with disabilities, such as autism, are one of the prime targets for bullies. Our guest today is very familiar with bullying because he was a victim. Anthony Ianni of the Michigan Department of Civil Rights. His story is so inspiring. Anthony played with the legendary coach Tom Izzo while at Michigan State University as the very first Division I athlete with autism. I can't wait for everyone to hear his story. It's so awesome. Let's give a warm welcome to the newest member of My Autism Tribe, Anthony Ianni. Hey, Anthony, thanks so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm good, Susan. How are you today?
I'm good. I just really appreciate you taking the time to join us today and share your story. I just really thank you so much.
No, you're very welcome. It's definitely an honor and privilege to be on here with you today.
Well, you have an amazing story, and I found you online, and I jokingly tell people I friendly stalked you online because I'm always looking for those inspirational stories, especially as an autism mom, that give me hope and just really for my son who, is getting ready to turn 6, and there's so many, the world of unknowns, and you are on the autism spectrum. Can you share a little bit about the diagnosis?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed in 1993 with pervasive developmental disorder, or PDD-NOS for short.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time period, it was very rare for somebody to have an autism diagnosis because in the early 90s, nobody knew what autism was. Nobody knew a lot of the characteristics for it. And obviously during that time period, there was no awareness for it at all. And that was more the ADD, ADHD era for diagnosis back in the day.
Sure.
And when my mom first took me in, because I was originally born in Athens, Ohio, and when they first took me in to get looked at, because my parents kind of noticed something was off. Just how, the stimulation from the arenas and the crowd noises and the sounds from the horn on the scoreboard, it was just too much for me.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom and my dad just kind of noticed something wasn't right. Or if they gave me a direction, I go do the complete opposite. Like if they told me to go, if they told me to go close the door, I would just open it even more.
Right.
So it was little things like that, just that my parents kind of noticed. So when they first took me in, the doctors first diagnosed me with, I see a child with ADD, and my mom was like, no, I know what ADD is because I've coached volleyball players and basketball players who have, ADD, and this is not it. It's something else. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and then they took me to the Children's Hospital in Columbus, and that's where I got diagnosed with PDD-NOS. And so early on, it was just basically, just the sounds of things around me, especially in football stadiums and arenas, that really kind of triggered my parents into noticing, okay, something's not right with Anthony, and we need to kind of figure out, what's going on.
And how old were you?
So I was 4. So
Okay.
I was 4 at the time.
Okay. And you speak about all of these sensory challenges in the arenas and on the court. Your parents have a sports background as well.
They do. My dad played 2 years of baseball at Michigan State University, and my mom was also a 3-sport All-American at Adrian College, and she was academic All-American for basketball. Still holds 8 or 9, school and league records at Adrian College. All-time leading scorer in points in both men and women's basketball, and she has her jersey retired. So she's definitely a legend at Adrian College. But both sister, who's 4 years older than me, she also played volleyball started off at the University of Pacific in California for 3 years and then finished her career at Michigan State. So we definitely have a family background of college athletics, and, my parents were kind of the ones that paved the way for me and my sister to, kind of follow our own path to getting where we wanted to go in our college dreams.
Wow. So that's absolutely incredible. So your parents took you had the diagnosis, and then what was your path after that? Like, were there therapies that you went into? How did basketball come into the equation?
So basketball never came into the equation maybe until I was 7 years old. Mm-hmm. And, at first I was given no path at all, because when I was 5, a year later after my diagnosis, during my IEP meeting in kindergarten, because they had some of the observers and doctors and experts had me go through some tests, and they observed me in a classroom. They had called my parents into a meeting and told them, all right, this is our conclusion. Your son has autism, and here's what we conclude. He'll probably barely graduate from high school. He's not going to go to college. We understand your background of athletics. He's not probably he probably won't be an athlete, and there are group institutions that he can go into. Whenever he's done with high school, and that was my path.
Wow.
That was given to me at 5, and luckily for me, I had parents who had two choices. They could either just say, okay, this is his fate, we're going to accept it, or we're going to be the ones to keep pushing every day and find a way to make all this happen. And that's what happened. And
yeah.
And when they were getting to the third expert, my father cut the person off. Mm-hmm. And said, hold on. Like he said, I appreciate you guys are doing and what you're trying to do for us, but let me tell you what our expectations are of our son. He's going to go to high school. He's going to graduate. Mm-hmm. Then he's going to go on to college. He's going to graduate. And he doesn't have to be an athlete to do all this either. Like, if the good Lord wants to bless him with those gifts, that's a bonus. But, he's going to do all those things and prove you guys wrong. And so their expectations for me, Susan, stayed up high from day one.
Good.
And were there times that I tested their patience? Absolutely. Like every kid does with their parent. I mean, my kids test my patience, every day. I mean, you're a mom, you understand
Absolutely.
that. But it didn't matter to them. Like, they just kept their expectations high. Or, and they pushed and pushed the Okemos public school system where I went to school as a kid. They pushed the school system every day to make sure that I got the right services I needed. I got the right resources I needed to help be successful. If something didn't work in my IEP plan, my teachers and my parents and my principal would all get together and go, okay, what's going to work for Anthony? What's going to help him be successful? What can we stick to in this plan that's going to help us be successful as a group in helping him get to where he needs to go? Mm-hmm. And that's a testament to my parents, because they just did not quit. And my mom, believe it or not, actually took a year off from working because her biggest concern or her biggest thing was to advocate for me. Yeah. And that year of advocating for me basically did a lot and more for me, because she was kind of the head honcho when it came to leading the charge, and making sure I got what I needed in public schools. And so during that time, there really wasn't a lot of, obviously, I don't think ABA therapy even existed, back in the day. But,
sure.
I had speech therapy twice a week from kindergarten all the way to my junior year of high school. Mm-hmm. And because of those speech sessions, it helped me learn a lot, because my biggest thing being on the spectrum is the language barriers that I have.
Sure.
Growing up as a kid, it was understanding nouns, verbs, idioms, sarcasm, and jokes, which sarcasm and jokes are still my worst, my biggest weaknesses I have being on the spectrum to this day. And it's probably something I'll have for the rest of my life, which I'm okay with.
Yeah.
But, being in there with my speech teachers and helping me understand, what a noun is or what a verb is, and using a verb in a sentence or a noun. Mm-hmm. And they knew my family background of athletics. So what my speech teachers did was, we would play board games or some type of game, and I would roll the dice and say the dice would land on 5. Well, I couldn't move my game piece up 5 spots until I got the right noun, verb, or idiom right. And Susan, I can't even describe and tell you how many times I threw a fit losing in a game of Mousetrap or like Candyland or something like that. So
I get upset when I lose at Mousetrap. It's it's devastating.
and then basketball I started playing when I was 7. So, and then I stopped when I was 23. So 16 years of competitive ball. But early on, basketball was just kind of a way for me to like, in almost a sense, kind of be like everybody else. Because every kid I knew growing up loved basketball. It was either basketball or football. I mean, those were the 2 main sports that were probably loved the most when I was a kid.
Yep.
And basketball was kind of that sport like I always wanted to do because, I grew up watching, Michael Jordan, one of the greatest of all time. I grew up watching Reggie Miller in his prime or Kobe Bryant when he was a rookie.
Yeah.
Shaq in his early days and, Hakeem Olajuwon and Patrick Ewing, just all those guys, Magic, Larry Bird. And I wanted to be like those guys. And at the time, like, I didn't know I was diagnosed on the spectrum. I didn't really know what was going on, in my life because I was too young to really understand what was going on. But, basketball was kind of my thing to like kind of get away from the world. And whenever Michael Jordan was on TV, I was in that living room. I was in my dad's rocking chair and just watching that, whatever game, the Bulls were playing. Because at the time, Michael Jordan was one of my biggest role models and heroes, and icons. And
that's awesome.
Just like everybody else, because everybody wanted to be like Mike, the Gatorade commercial, wanted
sure.
to be like Mike. And that was me pretty much. Like I was in my driveway every day wearing my Michael Jordan jersey, pretending to be him and shooting on that hoop. And, so basketball was the starting point to something that kind of grew into something bigger when I kept growing up.
Did you always have like a talent with the basketball? I mean, obviously you have to practice to become better and, but obviously you were drawn to basketball. Is it something that you were just gifted with?
That's a good question because like nobody's ever asked me that before. I mean, obviously, we're all born in life with certain gifts that we're blessed with, whether it is basketball or whether it's football or maybe it's not a sport. Maybe you are really really smart at math and you go on and use that for engineering or physics or whatever you go on to do in life. And so, I mean, obviously, we're all born with different gifts and talents in life, but I think for me, I probably didn't really start learning the game itself probably until I got to middle school because, my biggest advantage, in elementary school playing basketball was my height. Like I was a super tall kid, and when I got to 6th grade, I was 6 feet tall and wore a size 13 shoe at 11 years old. So in 4th grade, I believe I was probably like 5'5", 5'6", and then 5th grade it was like 5'9", 5'10", and then I shot up to 6 feet tall and started growing 2 inches every summer after that up until the beginning of my junior year in high school. So my biggest advantage at the time was my height, and so I could just, my teammates would just throw me the ball down low, and I would just turn and shoot the ball. And so, but I really didn't learn like the proper footwork and techniques and post moves probably until until my freshman year of high school. So, because I always used my height as my advantage, but when I started playing more and more competitive ball, I was playing against kids who were, some were taller than me, and I kind of had to learn you're not going to be taller than everybody else, or you're not going to be taller against everybody that you play. So you're kind of going to have to figure out a way to do other things than just stand on the block because, my autism was also it was also a little bit of a negative too in basketball because, like I said, I take things very literal. So if the coach told me to go stand on the block, I would go stand on the block.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't move. And my mom would say to me, because my mom would coach me up a lot because of her experiences in basketball. She would say to me, Anthony, you can move around the post, you can move around the block, you don't have to stand there. And I'm like, oh, no, Mom. Like, coach told me to stand on the block, so I got to listen to my coach.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
that's
so sweet.
That's kind of where it was for me early on. And, just some of the things that I said and did, from being on the spectrum, my teammates would see that and they really wouldn't quite understand, what I just said or why I meant to say it or what I was doing and why I was doing it. So, so it was definitely an up and down process for me early on. But once I really started to learn the game and started to learn more of the techniques and footwork from the game of basketball,
Mm-hmm.
then I started to really buy into it after that.
That's incredible. So when you were in, let's say, middle school and you really, kind of started playing, and here's this really tall kid who maybe has some quirks that friends don't quite understand. You've mentioned in several other interviews how that led to some bullying. Because this is really one of my biggest concerns for my son, because it breaks my heart to think about it.
I definitely get that, and I'm in the same boat as you, being the parent of two boys. And, you always think about, what your kid go through in school one day or what happens in school, are they doing all right? And
Mm-hmm.
for me, like, a lot of the bullying was because, the number one reason was mainly because of my height. Like I mentioned, I was 6 feet tall at 11 years old, and I had kids who weren't even half my height. Some of them were up to my hip.
Sure.
They were the bullies because, they were the ones that wanted to pick on me because I was the really tall kid. And I'm not gonna lie to you on this either, Susan. Like, I was a teddy bear, and I still am. Like, I don't have a mean bone in my body, but are there things that will upset me to the point where, that I'll walk up to somebody and kind of confront them, and talk to them about it? Yeah, I will do that because, I've always told people, like, if anybody, comes after, my family or says something about my family, that's where you're going to cross the line with me because, I'm always going to defend my family.
Sure.
Whereas if you say something about me or try to disrespect me, like, I'm always going to be one to walk away and not care about what that person says or thinks about me because, the only person's opinions I need to worry about in my life are my own, not what anybody else thinks, which is why, like, if I didn't have the job that I have today as a motivational speaker, I would be off social media completely because, it's, I mean, you've probably seen it. It drives me crazy just to see how people
It's a
talk
mess.
about each other. Yeah, it is. Just see how people talk about each other, and how they bully and tease each other. And so, but, in my day, which, like 17 years ago, 18 years ago, or whatnot, that was a time and age where there was no social media. There were cell phones were not iPhones. They were basically flip phones.
Yeah.
And so if you had issues with somebody, you were walking up to them face to face and telling them about it. And if you heard somebody talking about you behind your back, kind of the same deal. Like, if you have something to say to me, say it to me. Look at my eyes and say it to me, and then we'll move on. But my bullies were they went after me every day, and it got to the point where the entire school was rallying around the bullies to bully me because they thought it was funny talking about my height, making fun of me for this, and just some of the things like some of my autism quirks. People saw that and noticed that, and really took advantage of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, like, what do I got to do to, like, let all this go? And it wasn't just in the hallways of school. Sometimes it was on my own teams that I was on. Not more so the basketball team because, a lot of those guys I played ball with for a long time and starting in third grade all the way on up. And so a lot of those guys kind of knew me and kind of knew my ups and downs, but some of the guys who, didn't play with me at first, or was the first time, being a teammate of mine, didn't quite understand it.
Sure.
But on football, when I played tackle football, I had guys who were just ragging me all the time. And, and it was two guys in particular who went after me for being soft and and basically making fun of me for some of my quirks. And so it was difficult. And it got to the point, Susan, where I didn't want to go to practice, football practice. I would seriously try to gag myself before every practice and then tell my mom I was sick because I didn't want to endure all that every day. I was tired of it. I was sick of it. And I did. And part of me really wanted to go to practice or school and just walk up to those bullies and just knock them out because that's how upset I was getting. And so, But luckily, my parents would counsel me every night, would teach me every night, and and then eventually, my dad and I had a conversation. He said, so here's the deal. Like, obviously, I don't want you using your hands or fists or anything like that. Like, I don't want you to do any of that. But
Yeah.
you play a sport. Use it to your advantage. Stay within the rules of the game and get your retaliation that way.
Mm.
And that's what I did. And my dad was right on to that point. So
Yeah.
in sixth grade in Little League basketball, I had to play one of my bullies against his team, and he had to play mine.
Mm-hmm.
And my team obviously won the game by double digits, and my bully had to guard me the entire game.
Yeah.
And I went out and dropped 20 points on the guy.
That's awesome.
And so, but my dad was right. Use the game to get your retribution. And he was right, because after that game, I walked back to school on Monday. I went up to my bully just to go shake his hand to, tell him he did a good job during the game and just move on, put everything behind me. And the guy wanted nothing to do with me. He flat out said to me, I know what you're trying to do, I know what you're trying to say, but I want nothing to do with this. I want nothing to do with you. Like, it's over. I'm done.
Well, you found a strength, and your parents saw this strength. And just like any parent would with a child, hopefully, is if you see that strength, you just encourage it. And that can develop into a passion. I read that you you earned all league and all area honors in your high school. So then you're on the springboard to college. And so you're kind of dealing with the bullying. People are really seeing how awesome you are on the court, and now really just taking a closer look at who you are as a person, just a stand-up kind of person. And what did that entry into college look like?
It was different. I could tell you that.
Yeah.
And it's funny, we talk about, characteristics on the spectrum. Another characteristic I had and still have is dealing with change.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so when I was in high school, this was my schedule. I woke up at 6:30, and then I was in school from like 7:30 to like 2:45. Then I had practiced from 3:15 to around 5 o'clock, 5:15. Go home. Or if we had a team dinner at somebody's house, we would have that. Then I go home, finish my homework, and then I'd be in bed by like 9:30, 10 o'clock.
It's a lot of transitions.
A lot of transitions, yep. And so when I got to college, I didn't even think about the whole socializing with people, going to parties, going out on a Friday night or Saturday night. Like, I didn't think about that, because when I was in high school, I was so caught up in trying to prove every single doubter and hater and doctor and expert wrong. I was just so caught up in that, and I didn't even think about what other things were out there in college. And so when I got there, I'll never forget the first night I went out with my roommate and my teammates. It was just, I wasn't comfortable.
Yeah.
I really wasn't, because it was kind of the first time I had witnessed people like being drunk and drinking, and I'm just like, it's like, I'm so uncomfortable right now. Like, I just want to go back to the dorm room and just like watch TV and go to sleep. And so, it was just a really weird start to college for me. And then I was still on that schedule. I was in bed by like 9:30, and then I was up at 6:30 going to the cafeteria to get breakfast for class. And some of my teammates were like, Anthony, why are you going to bed at 9:30? Like, you're in college now. Like, you don't have to do that. But they didn't understand it. And so, my roommate, who is probably one of my closest friends. Like, I consider him a brother. He was best man at my wedding. I was best man at his.
Awesome.
The first time, in the first week we had together at Grand Valley State, of course we knew each other and talked to each other before we got to college. I had told him about me, just being on the spectrum. And I told him, I was like, if I looked like I was uncomfortable, going out last weekend, this is why. And so about 2 weeks before the season started, a lot of the guys went home for a weekend, because once the season starts, or any basketball season, like, you're basically,
you're locked in.
you're locked in. You're worried about practice, you're worried about games, film, scouting report, all that stuff. Like, you're just locked in for like the next 6 months, 7 months.
Mm-hmm.
And so 2 weeks before my first official basketball season in college started, a lot of the guys went home for the weekend except for my roommate and one of my other freshman teammates. And so Mike, my roommate, just walked in our dorm room, Friday evening and said to me, he said, okay, he said, Anthony, here's the deal. He said, all the guys are gone pretty much this weekend, except for you, me, and so-and-so.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go out tonight. We're going to try and break you out of your comfort zone. He said, we're not going to do anything crazy. We're just going to go hang out with a couple of people that we met, at freshman orientation.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go hang out with them and just see where the night takes us. And if you're uncomfortable, you just let me know, and we'll find something else to go do. But
okay,
we got to try to get you out of this comfort zone. We got to try and just, kind of get you used to everything that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we did. So we ended up meeting up with a couple of people that we met at freshman orientation, and then we went to one of our teammates' apartment that was on campus for a couple hours, and we just, went out and went with where the night took us. And so,
mm-hmm.
and I think we got back like super late. I think it was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning we got back, and I remember just telling Mike, I said, I needed this. And then that kind of opened the door for me to having a better social life at Grand Valley State University, where I was for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I tell people, Susan, like, the first 2 years of college at Grand Valley State were probably some of my funnest and my best, because, I met so many people. I basically kind of grew up. I got out of my comfort zone. I was able to kind of get out of that, okay, you're in bed by 9 o'clock, schedule type of deal. And it was because, Mike just walked in and just said to me, hey, we're not going to do anything stupid. We're just going to go out, chill with some people, and just have a good time. And if you're uncomfortable, just tell me.
What a great friend.
And that's when I knew, Susan, that, okay, this is a guy I can trust.
Mm-hmm.
This is a guy who understands me. And this is a guy who I know that if I need something or if I need advice from, he's who I'm going to. So, my first 2 years of college, my first year mainly, was a big reason why it was a success was because of Mike and because of his support for me.
That's incredible. That's so awesome. I want to meet Mike and shake his hand. So you're at Grand Valley State. Mm-hmm. You go to bed 9:30, but you were actually dreaming about putting on a Spartans jersey.
That was always my dream, Susan. And it's funny you bring that up, because and it's funny we're having this conversation, and college football is starting, this weekend. Michigan State opens up against
mm-hmm.
Tulsa in a couple days here. But, I was always rooting for Michigan State,
mm-hmm.
Football especially, because, I think I have more of a love for watching football than maybe I do basketball, because I played it for so long. But, if Michigan State was on, okay, I'm in my dorm room watching Michigan State football.
Yeah.
Or if Michigan State basketball was on during a day where we weren't playing, I was in my dorm room where I was in somebody else's room in our dorm or somebody's apartment watching the game. And so even though I went to Grand Valley State, my love for Michigan State obviously did not disappear. Like, it was still with me, even almost 2 hours away from being home.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sitting here in Lexington, Kentucky, so a lot of people here dream of putting on the University of Kentucky, the Wildcat Blue, and that for me, like, growing up, I didn't play sports in college, but that was where I knew I wanted to go. That's really cool.
For sure. And I think you'll find this a little bit funny too, because when I went to Grand Valley State, they had I think Kentucky has Go Big Blue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct me. Okay,
mm-hmm.
so Grand Valley State had a Let's Go Blue chant, which that's also the chant our rivals down in Ann Arbor at the University of Michigan do.
Yeah.
And so whenever Grand Valley State cheerleaders were getting the student section at football games to do that chant, I never did it. I never did it because that was the Michigan State Spartan in me that never wanted to do that chant, because I knew, granted, I knew it was Grand Valley State, but at the same time, I'm like, no, our rivals in Ann Arbor do that. They're not my rival, but you know what? I can't stand,
right.
University University of Michigan football or basketball. So like, I'm not doing that chant. And even Mike and some of my teammates were like, dude, it's okay. I'm like, no, it's not. I said, you have no idea. I said, I'm not doing that chant.
That's so funny. So, you're wanting to go and play at Michigan State. How did that whole conversation start? Like, did you call Tom up and be like, hey, I want to play basketball with you. What can I do?
So Coach Izzo actually had recruited me when I was in high school. So, because I know because some folks may look at my career and go, oh, he was only recruited by Grand Valley State, which, Grand Valley State was not the only school. My freshman or my sophomore year up to my junior year, I was being recruited by a lot of teams, Michigan State, Notre Dame, Michigan, Wisconsin, a lot of the MAC schools like Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, Western, Ohio University, Toledo. I'm probably forgetting a couple others in the MAC there. Valparaiso, Indiana, Purdue, Fort Wayne. So, Drake. So there were schools I was being recruited at from all levels. Anywhere from Division II, Division III, all the way to Division I. And my first offer was from Oakland University in Rochester, Michigan. And Oakland's mid-major school, but it's a nice university. It's a nice college. And so they had offered me going into my junior year of high school. And so my point guard, my all-state point guard, who was actually a really good friend of mine, he committed to go play to Oakland. And, and at our team banquet, after my junior year, I kind of teased a little bit that he and I said, maybe you and I will reunite, at Oakland.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of teasing people a little bit that, okay, I'm going to go to Oakland. And so, and initially that was kind of my plan, hoping what I would do was to go to Oakland and you kind of unite with him and, continue what we started at, during our careers at Oakland High School.
Mm-hmm.
And then Grand Valley State came in the mix. They had offered me a full ride scholarship. And then all of a sudden, I wanted to commit to Oakland, but when I wanted to, they had pulled back my scholarship. So it was down to Michigan State and Grand Valley State. And so I actually had a conversation with Coach Izzo because they offered me a walk-on spot, and then I would earn a full ride scholarship down the road. And Coach Izzo and I had a conversation. I said, Coach, I don't know what to do because, as you know, Michigan State's where I want to be. This is my dream school. And I got more love and passion for this place than probably a lot of other people on this campus. Athlete or administrator, that's my personal feel about it. So I don't know what to do. And he said to me, well, I'm just going to tell you right now, if you don't take a full ride offer, then you are absolutely crazy. He's like, I'll be mad at you if you don't take a full ride offer. And because I had always told him that being on scholarship at Michigan State was probably my ultimate goal of doing. And he had told me, he's like, well, I don't have scholarships right now, and I don't know when you can get one. So obviously I believe you would work hard for it, but I think in this situation, your school's being paid for, your books are taken care of, your tuition, food, all that stuff. That's bigger for your family than anything else. And and the last thing he said to me, Susan, before I went off to Grand Valley State is something I'll never forget. He said, but here's the deal. He said, just know that if anything ever changes at Grand Valley State, you're always welcome here. You'll have a locker and a jersey waiting for you. If things don't work out, just
That's
know
awesome.
that. And even during my time at Grand Valley State, Susan, especially my sophomore year when things were really, really up and down for me, mostly down, I had conversations with him over the phone. I had a couple 2-hour, 1-hour conversations with him just about my frustrations, and he was talking to me as a coach to a player. And just telling me, okay, this is what you could try to do. This is what you should do. I mean, and here's one of the best college basketball coaches taking his time to talk to me, and I wasn't even on the team. I wasn't even a player of his, and he's taking time out of his busy schedule to have these conversations with me to help me get through these tough times I'm having in Grand Valley State. And that's the relationship that Coach Izzo and I had. Even when I was in high school, because of my dad's work at Michigan State through athletics. And so when I decided to transfer and move on from Grand Valley State, I had some schools recruiting me right off the bat. I had a couple of them offer me outside the Final Four that year when it was in Detroit. But everybody and their mother knew that Michigan State was where I wanted to be, and that's what everybody wanted for me, because a lot of my friends knew that that's where I wanted to go from day one. And so Coach Izzo and I sat down and we had a meeting, and I told him, I said, it didn't work out for me at Grand Valley State because of these reasons, and I'm ready to come home.
Yeah.
This is where I want to be. And I said, that from day one, and this is where I want to be. This is where I want to finish my career. And he looked at me and said, all right, but here's the deal. He said, I'm going to push you. Mm-hmm. He's like, I'm going to push you like no other coach has ever pushed you, maybe in your entire basketball life.
Yeah.
And he said, there are going to be things that, you're going to look at and go, man, I wish, I don't want to do that. But, basketball-wise, it's going to be good for you. Like, if we tell you to run a mile, you're going to hate it. You're going to have to run that mile because the whole team's doing it. So, but I told him, I said, I'll run through a brick wall for you. Like, if you tell me to go run to the stadium and back right now, I'll go do it, because, you're the guy I want to play for, and I'm going to bust my butt for you in this program, in this university. And then the last thing we talked about was, cause he had always known that I was on the spectrum, because of the conversations he always had with my dad in high school and in middle school, because of their meetings they had all the time. And he said, the last thing he said to me, he's like, and here's the other thing I want you to understand, just because you have autism does not mean I'm going to treat you any differently. I'm going to treat you like I would every other player that's come through my program. And I looked at him, I said, Coach, that's what I want. I don't want to be treated differently. Like, I don't want any like advantages over people. I don't want any privileges that guys on the team won't get. Like, I don't want that. Like, I want you to treat me like every player you've had here. I want you to treat me like if Magic Johnson was on the team today. I want you to treat me like Jason Richardson. Like, treat me how you treated those guys. Treat me equally. That's all I want. And quite frankly, Susan, that's one of the biggest reasons, like, I went back home, was because I wanted to play for a coach who number one, understood me and knew my background a little bit better. I'm not saying, Grand Valley State's coach, didn't know my background at all. That wasn't the case, but, we just didn't understand how to work with each other or communicate with each other, and I had to learn that. And so my mistakes from Grand Valley State, I learned and made sure that I wasn't going to make those same mistakes of communication again when I went to Michigan State. So that's how it all started for me. Coach Izzo saying, welcome home. I'm going to push you every day, and I'm not going to treat you any differently because you have autism. And that's when I knew I was in the right place.
Yeah, absolutely. I have goosebumps because, of course, Coach Izzo is a very well-respected coach. But oftentimes you really don't hear of the really personal connections that they have with their players. It's all about the points and it's about the game and, about the tournaments. And I'm actually, I don't want to say I'm surprised because that sounds really bad, but the time that he took to really just connect with you, even when you were not playing for him specifically, just to engage you and coach you without needing a piece of paper that said that he was your coach, is just really astounding.
And that's the thing, Susan, and it's funny, like, I've met, I have my wife's family, her aunt and uncle are Duke grads. Her uncle played football at Duke, her aunt played Duke, and so that side of the family is mainly Duke. But the one thing they've always respected about Michigan State was Coach Izzo, because of how great of a coach he is, how great of a person he is, and and then if you go down the line, it's same thing with Kansas folks that I talk to. Oh, we love Tom Izzo, he's a great guy, or yourself, a Kentucky fan, we're really not surprised by this because of who he is. But that's the thing. Like, there are some folks out there in our country who see Tom Izzo, but they don't know the real him.
Right.
Because they'll see him on TV yelling at a player, and then they'll say, oh, he shouldn't be doing that. But at the same time, it's like, well, he yelled at me for all those years in practice, and it didn't bother me one bit because that's his coaching style. But what he has done, Susan, at that university, as far as like developing a family atmosphere, and I tell some recruits, whenever I get to meet recruits at our reunions, like I tell recruits this all the time, and it's in no way, shape, or fashion, disrespecting Kentucky or Duke or
Mm-hmm.
Kansas or Arizona or anybody like that. But I've always told recruits, I said, when you come to Michigan State, you're going to be you're going to have something that no other college basketball program will have,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the family atmosphere. Because we have two reunions every year. We have one in football season, and we have one during basketball season. And
Mm-hmm.
we get over anywhere between 200 to 300 former players come back for those reunions.
Wow.
Because of Coach Izzo, because of what he's built at Michigan State, because of how much Michigan State means to a lot of those guys. And Coach Izzo's always told us, he's just the guy that coaches. The players do all the work. The players build the program. But at the same time, if he's not there, I'm willing to bet we don't have these reunions. We don't have that.
Yeah.
We don't have that welcome home, family-like atmosphere whenever we go back to those offices and visit with the coaches or watch practices or watch games.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I tell recruits. I said, you're gonna come here to Michigan State, and then 4 years later, you're gonna walk away knowing that you have a home for the rest of your life, because that's what our program is about family. And again, whenever I talk to people about what's the difference between us and Ohio State, well,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, I don't think Ohio State has that same family atmosphere that we do, because Michigan State University as a whole, they heard about what our program stands for as far as family goes,
Mm-hmm.
and now some of our current and former students consider Michigan State as family because we're all Spartans. And it's funny, Susan, whenever people talk to me about the whole group home comment that those doctors and experts, said to my family,
Yeah.
I've always told people, I said, I kind of did grow up in a group home. It was a group home of 50,000 green and white, students.
That's a great point.
And so, but a lot of it was because of Coach Izzo. And, and I know the last couple of years, he's kind of come under fire, especially with what went down at Michigan State. But, he was kind of the guy that held everybody above ground, because he was being a leader. And that's what he is at Michigan State. He's not just a coach, he's a great leader. And, when you look at guys like myself and Draymond Green, who plays for the Golden State Warriors, when you ask, where do we get our leadership from, or who taught us to be great leaders,
Mm-hmm.
Obviously we're going to say our families, whether it's mom or dad, taught us, a lot. But Coach Izzo's always in that conversation because of how he taught us not just the game of basketball, but how he taught us, about the game of life as well.
Absolutely. You've had some amazing supporters in your life, and I think that's really what it comes down to when you look at this positive trajectory of a child's life from the time they are diagnosed until the time that they do graduate high school or college. And maybe that's not in the cards for everyone, but any kind of progress is going to take good leadership, good support, great encouragement, love, patience, perseverance, all of that wrapped up together in order to make that child succeed. And I'm just amazed. Your parents, Greg and Jamie, I want to give them a hug. And high five, Coach Izzo. It's amazing to hear that amount of support. And I want to just say to all of our listeners, that support doesn't necessarily just exist at school. It doesn't exist on a basketball team or just at home. It's all inclusive. It takes a village, like they say, to raise a child. And that, whether you're on the spectrum or off the spectrum, and always meet your child where they are. If you see a strength, then encourage that. And I love what you're doing as far as your motivational speaking. You obviously have not only a gift for basketball, but just storytelling. And, a lot of storytelling, you have to have a good story, and you have one of the most inspiring stories. So I can't thank you enough for sharing yours. And I know, and I hope that the listeners out there really just take everything that you've said to heart and see that there is hope. Don't set limits on them. Push them. They will grow. And like you said, I believe one time, it's like you can do extraordinary things. Autism doesn't define who you are. You define who you are.
Right. And that's basically the reason why, Susan, like I got into motivational speaking and doing what I'm doing now, because you know, so my first ever speech I gave was at a nonprofit gala in Detroit about 2 weeks before I graduated from Michigan State. And so I did like a 9-10 minute keynote, and you know, I remember, and this was a time where I was like every other senior in college, like, oh no, what am I going to do? Like, you know, what's my next step? And so I was kind of at that crossroads of what I was going to do. And so after the gala, I got in the car with my wife, and we were driving home, and I said to her, I think I know where I'm meant to be now. And she goes, well, what do you mean? I said, let me ask you this question. I said, other than Dr. Temple Grandin, who's one of the most famous individuals in the world with autism and a good friend and mentor of mine, I said, other than her, I said, name me somebody else that the autism community looks up to like her.
Yeah.
You know, name somebody like her name me somebody else like her who's a big role model, icon, and leader in that community. And she couldn't name anybody. She couldn't name another person. And I said, well, you know what? I'm gonna go be that guy then. I'm gonna go be that guy to be that leader, that role model, and that icon for not just those on the spectrum, but for those who are affected by autism in some way, whether it's a parent, you know, a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a friend, whoever. Like I said, I want to go be that guy, and what I love to be the one who she passes the torch down to one day and just says, you know what, I can't continue this anymore, but I want you to do it for me.
Yeah.
That's always been my hope, and you know, one of my biggest dreams. But you know what, I've also told people, I said, if that never happens, I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing, because you know, we have over 3.5 million people in our country with autism, and and a lot of those individuals on the spectrum need a voice.
Yeah.
And that's all. I'm going to go continue to be the voice for those who need one. And you know, I love what I do. I love the community I represent, and I tell people, Susan, I'm going to continue to do this for as long as I can. And there's so many other things I want to do in my career. So many other things that, you know, I've yet to accomplish.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to take those things day by day and just, you know, enjoy the process and enjoy the ride in the process as well.
You're absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And My Autism Tribe is going to support you in whatever you do and wherever you go. We have your back, absolutely. And would love to, you know, continue the conversation. I'm going to consider you as part of My Autism Tribe. Thank you again for everything that you're doing and for the person that you are.
Thank you, Susan. I greatly appreciate it.
Anthony repeatedly delivers a consistent message wherever he goes, with whomever he is speaking with. And that is that those on the autism spectrum have the same dreams, desires, and goals as anybody else. Anthony's family made a pledge they would help Anthony be successful no matter what. Well done, Greg and Jamie. We're so proud of your son, Anthony. Thanks for being a part of My Autism Tribe, and I'll see you next week.